Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 26th of April. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this morning by Johnny McFarlane. How are we getting on, Johnny?
Good, mate. Good. Delighted to be back on this morning after being off yesterday, and looking forward to some Rangers chat.
Yeah, it could be quite a big week, shall we say, for the club. Before we look ahead to the game on Thursday night, folks, if you're watching us on YouTube, remember the drill. If you've not subscribed already, just hit that subscribe button. It means you'll never miss a video when we go live. And if you want to take advantage of our fantastic offer on the Rangers Review site just now, just £1 for 2 months worth of content. Not only that, you get entered into a prize draw for a signed first team jersey. It really is a amazing deal we've got on. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe and you can see the ticker at the bottom of the screen as well for all the details there. Johnny, let's talk Rangers then. So many comments coming in. Before we talk Rangers, happy haircut, as David rightly points out.
Finally got around to it.
Yeah, tremendous stuff. We touched on this yesterday, Johnny. Of course, it was at the club's Player of the Year Awards on Sunday. Alfredo Morelos scooped at the Player of the Year award. James Tavernier was named Players Player. Calvin Bassey took home the Young Player of the Year award. And it got me thinking with regards to James Tavernier. For me, he was perhaps a little bit unfortunate to miss out on the Player of the Year prize. His numbers again through the roof this season. For me, I wrote my piece this morning on the site. He's a modern day Rangers legend. I know it sparked a bit of debate when you brought up the subject last week when we were talking on the video. But for me, he is, and the form that he's in at the moment, I think he's in probably some of the best form of his life. It bodes well heading into the game on Thursday night.
Yeah, James Tavernier is without a doubt the most prolific Rangers right back of my lifetime. He's my favourite Rangers right back. If you're talking about a player of real quality who can impact the game in ways that are well beyond what you would expect from somebody in that position. Gary Stevens was an unbelievable player, obviously, an England international, and people will rightly say, well, you know, Tavernier's not an English international. He's not gone to the level that Stevens got to. But with respect to Gary Stevens, his numbers were nowhere near as good, I don't think, as James Tavernier, certainly not in terms of goals. It was at different times then, obviously, and overlapping fullbacks were a thing, but not to the same extent that they are nowadays.
Yeah.
But James Tavernier, when you think that he was brought in, I think a combined fee of 350 grand with Martin Waghorn, which I know Mark Warburton has his critics, but that is just insane business, getting those two from Wigan for that amount. I mean, that is absolutely insane. Remember, Martin Waghorn 3 years later went to Derby for 8 million quid, and Tavernier's delivered unbelievable amounts of quality for Rangers over the time. In Europe, 6 goals is it this season so far in the Europa League?
Yeah, top joint scorer. And of course, the two boys that are joint top with them are no longer in the competition. So who's to say he won't add to that tally?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. He could end up being the Europa League top scorer outright. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. Insane. And that's the only word you can use to describe the numbers of a guy who's producing what he's producing. I think he's over 30 goal contributions in 50 games or something like that. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but he's played around 50 and he's got over 30 goal contributions. So the guy is just a machine. He's showing no signs of slowing down. I think he's in terms of his physical qualities, he's very, very rarely injured. In terms of, I think he's had one injury in the whole time he's been at Rangers of any significance.
Yeah.
Fortunately, at that time, Rangers had Nathan Patterson to step up. So he deserves all the credit that he's got coming his way. And I have to say, I think he's been a little bit unlucky not to win the Player of the Year as well as the Players' Player of the Year. I think the players got it right. Alfredo Morelos was dreadful, absolutely dreadful, until Giovanni Van Bronckhorst came in. And he's been brilliant since Giovanni Van Bronckhorst came in. There's no doubt about it. But he was so bad prior to that. I don't think he deserved to be in the Player of the Year. Maybe in consideration, but for me, James Tavernier's been consistently good all season and has been absolutely outstanding at the highest level of all, which is the Europa League.
Yeah.
So to me, he's the one that absolutely should have been given that award. But listen, it's totally subjective, isn't it? So you can understand why they've wanted to share the awards about a bit.
Yeah, for me, I mean, Calvin Bassey was named Young Player, but he was in the running for my main Player of the Year as well. I think he's been a revelation. This point from Chris, Johnny, I wanted to touch on because I raised it in my piece on Tavernier. Do you think maybe a team will be in for Tav in the summer? He has excellent form this year. That's one thing that surprised me, I have to say. There's been relatively little noise since he arrived in terms of teams testing the water, maybe want to bring him back down south. There's been very much like Connor Goldson, it's not really been an issue, has it? It's just been a surprise to me because I can see him in any team down south and doing well. So it has been a bit of a surprise. Not that it would be welcomed, of course, but can you see perhaps in the summertime, of course, he's 30 years of age now, a team might fancy coming in and testing the water, given what, like you say, Johnny, the Europa League stats are quite incredible.
You'd have to have big money to be able to prize away the Rangers captain, even though he's 30. I don't see it, Derek. The reason I don't see it is I think he's at a stage in his career now where he's at the perfect club for him. He's got a long-term contract. The thing about Tavernier, and I've spoken to people down south about this, is he is a player who has found the best possible outlet for his talents in Glasgow Rangers because they're a team that are on the front foot, that are relentlessly going forwards almost every game. And that is Tavernier's game. If he was to go down to a club of the standing that would be able to A, afford him, and B, entice him, you're probably talking mid-level Premiership. I don't know, Premier League, sorry. And are those teams going to play in the way that gets the best out of Tavernier? Maybe like a Leeds United or something like that under Bielsa, he would have been great. But, you know, I don't think he would look out of place at a Liverpool or a Manchester United, but, well, probably get straight into the team at Man United, to be fair.
Yeah.
But they're not going to sign James Tavernier because it's just the way they operate. They go, you know, and sign players who are in their early 20s, who are going to give them 10 years. And that's how they operate. And so he's never going to get a club in England that's going to play to his strengths. And if you're not going to play to his strengths, if you're going to ask him to be a more traditional right back, then he's not the player that Rangers see. So, I think I don't think he's going to make a move. I think he's going to be Rangers right back for the next wee while, and I think that's great for the club.
Yeah, I like this comment from Ross. We're getting into trouble with his work with the timings that we're on, Johnny. Okay,
well, you can always watch it non-live.
Yeah. Curry Muncher says, considering Tav's numbers in Europe, especially this season, you would think you're hearing of more teams sniffing about him. Yeah, that's very much so. Let's touch on. There's some more comments coming in.
Just see on that. Have you spoken to people about that? You've been down there. You must have touched on Tavernier over the years. I mean, you know, he was in your patch at Wigan when he left for that, you know, combined fee with Waghorn. I mean,
there's a boy down here.
Any eyebrows at the time.
Yeah, he's from Bradford. There's a boy down here that went to school with him, and he sings his praises all the time. That I meet regularly when I cover games down here, and they think he's a class act as well. But there's also that feeling that he had a number of clubs down south before he went to Rangers. He was. I don't want to say a reject, but he was sort of passed from pillar to post at different clubs, didn't really settle, and then he goes up to Rangers and he's, like you say, John, he's found a club that is home for him, and he really has nurtured into this tremendous right back. But there is probably that feeling down here that he was, playing with clubs in the lower leagues. But I certainly think he would step into most clubs in the Premier League with ease down here. There's no doubt about it.
You just have to look at how he performs in the Europa League, and the Europa League is a commensurate level. You know, the Europa League is better than the Championship. You know, so there's no doubt in my mind he could take that step up and deliver for a team. But it would have to be a team that suited his strengths. That's the main thing for him. If you're going to a team where they're asking you to do something that's not your strength, although I do think a lot of the stuff that's talked about Tavernier, Derek, is nonsense. Like, people say, "Oh, I can't defend." I mean, his one-on-one defending's excellent. It's excellent. I think people for a long time kind of were criticising Tavernier on the basis of a tactical choice. So under Warburton, I mean, he was told to be bombing forward. So of course there was times when there was huge gaps because Tavernier was forward, but that wasn't because he was consciously doing that. It was because that's how the team set up. And Warburton was gambling that the overloads he was creating by Tavernier being forward would mean more goals than they let in.
Yeah.
And through various Rangers managers, Tavernier wasn't properly covered. I think once Candeas came in under Pedro, that's when you started to see Tavernier get less jip about his defensive play, because Daniel Candeas was very, very clever at filling in behind him.
Yeah.
And then when Gerrard came in, all of a sudden, Tavernier is no longer really a weakness anymore, because you've got Ryan Jack in there, who was so adept at dropping in and so tactically intelligent. And since then, I think anyone that says that, and it's an old trope, and you see it getting brought out on social media time and again, but they just don't know what they're talking about. Tavernier's defending is not a problem really anymore. No. The one area that he does have, I think, still a little bit of an issue with is these crosses into the back post. I think sometimes if there's one flaw in his game, he can be a bit ropey in that regard and trying to just be switched on enough to stop somebody drifting in at the back post.
Yeah.
But apart from that, and one-on-one, how often does somebody get the better of him, give him a spanking one-on-one? Very, very, very rarely. I can't even think off the top of my head someone who gave him a real roasting.
No.
Well, you guys might be able to remember a time in Europe where he got a bit of a tanking, but I just don't remember it. The guy, physically, the guy is so impressive in terms of pace and power.
Yeah.
Who's gonna give him a tanking? You've got to be an absolute monster to to come in and kind of overpower James Tavernier or be able to run past him.
Yeah,
it just doesn't happen very often.
There's a good piece by Craig Vickers on the website, folks, as well, about Goldson and Tavernier in that semi-final against Celtic. He had Jota in his back pocket for much of it. It really was sensational. I wanted to touch on this question here, looking ahead to Thursday, Johnny, from Alexander. Do you think Bassey, Balogun and Goldson work as a back three so attacking players can do well, like against Dortmund? Would you be tempted to go to a back three on Thursday? I'm not quite sure about that. And with Balogun's moment of madness at Fir Park, that would cast a few doubts in my mind whether to start him on Thursday.
No, they will go back. They will go to a back three, on and off throughout the game, and it depends on the game state, what's happening, how long they're in a back three. But it'll be John Lundstram dropping in between Goldson and Bassey. It'll not be Balogun. So that's the great thing about John Lundstram, and that's what he's given to this Rangers team, and that's why I think there's almost an argument to say John Lundstram's been Player of the Year in that incredibly short time period. Because in terms of Europe, that adjustment of John Lundstram as a hybrid defence midfielder, a guy who can step back or step forward, has just changed the dimension of the team completely in Europe. And it's a huge part of why Rangers have performed the way they have. And you saw, I mean, I thought John Lundstram's performance against Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final, guys, was off the charts. He was unbelievable. Now, of course, he was a touch over physical, and other referees might have, booked him. But he wasn't booked. And so he was able to do his role, which is to be a physically imposing midfielder. But that addition by Steven Gerrard has turned out to be a very, very, very smart one indeed. And Lundstram is looking like the signing of the season, no doubt about that.
Yeah,
he's settled in very well, and a big part of that is his ability to drop between defence and midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually speaking after the game to people of a Celtic persuasion, and they felt John Lundstram had a terrible game just running into players. Well, that tells you how much he's played well.
John Lundstram had a bad game.
Yeah, the fella should be sent off. It was just that looking through it with green tinted specs, of course, and they don't.
Okay.
If that's the case, then you know that he's had a good game because they're so upset by him being, like you say, over physical. But I thought he was fantastic in that semi-final. Almost Ian Ferguson-esque, Johnny. He reminded me of
Barry Ferguson. I was thinking. See. I don't know if this is your age. But when you talk about a midfield performance, I always think back to the 2003 Cup final.
Yeah.
Do you think further back than that?
Yeah, it was more Ian fit, just the way he was. I know Barry's similar.
All right, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. The sort
just
of physicality of the
in there.
performance. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody was getting the better of John Lundstram at a hand on that day. And you're right, Johnny. I mean, very much like Morelos, before Van Bronckhorst arrived, and even after he arrived, he wasn't getting a game, wasn't he? And we were all thinking he's out the door. And it was a disastrous signing, but it's amazing what football is. It's such a fickle game at times. It's amazing how things can turn out, and he certainly has been a tremendous addition to the side, and quite rightly won the goal of the season award for that terrific strike against Borussia Dortmund. Not just the strike, but the build-up to it was just absolutely exceptional. Comments coming in saying that Scott Berg says he prefers Bassey rather than Balogun. I don't think there's any argument to be had there. I think Bassey will get the nod over Leon Balogun ahead of in Thursday's game. Leipzig get beat the weekend, Johnny. Curry Muncher gets in touch. They're quick but prone to counter-attacks. Union Berlin, of course, who they played, should have won by a bigger margin as their defence is not that great. Can we look too much into that, I guess? I think
you can. Honestly, I'm going to stick my neck out here. I'm feeling quite confident going into this game. I know a lot of people who are embedded in German football, and I was talking to a guy in football scouting, and he was talking about Jadon Sancho moving to Manchester United, and how that German football numbers are totally inflated by the fact that everyone plays this insane gegenpress.
Yeah.
So all the teams all the coaches are it's almost like the Portuguese coaches doing tactical periodization. All the German coaches are big on the high press. So there's always huge amounts of space in behind these teams. They're not, controlling games necessarily. And listen, I know. But Dortmund are a better team than Leipzig. And the evidence is there that Leipzig can be caught on the break. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not particularly worried at this stage about this game. Now, I might be completely wrong. I just think that the quality that Rangers have in terms of on the break is pretty good, and that means that I'm less concerned about the game in general and about Leipzig going and hammering Rangers. Because let's be honest, all that you want from this game, from a Rangers point of view, is to be able to bring it back to Ibrox with a good chance of progressing. Keeping it alive for the next game. That's the absolute priority more than anything else. You saw against Braga, they went over there, they lost 1-0. Yeah. Everyone was a bit upset with the performance. It wasn't great, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I thought the reaction to that game was pretty intense, to be honest. Yeah. But you absolutely have a great chance at Ibrox then to overturn it. And it's the same. I mean, a one-off game at Ibrox, if you win it, you go through, for example. I mean, it'd be absolutely insane. Personally, Derek, I would play Ryan Kent up front. I've been saying this from the get-go. I think a really fast line, I would probably put Sakala left where Kent normally plays and Kent in the middle. Now, the problem with that, of course, I admit, is Ryan Kent is not a natural finisher. Yeah. He will not be deadly like Kemar Roof. But he's so clever and he's such a high-quality player, I don't think he'll have any problems doing it. And we know that he's really good on the counter and cause his team all sorts of problems in the break. And if you're a centre-half, you're not going to want Ryan Kent running at you. Seriously, you're not. So that's what I would do. I'd play Kent as a sort of false nine. Maybe, and I'm seeing people talking about playing a Rebo there. That could be an option, but I just feel like that's a big gamble. I don't think he's going to take the gamble. I noticed, Kent didn't play against Motherwell. I think that's probably because he's got a huge role to play. Yeah, in this one. The good news, of course, is that it's only another couple of games, and then Rangers should have their main options back. or their main option in Kemar Roof back. Fashion Sakala, for me, he was really good against Motherwell at times, but he's still a player that's capable of the great and then the grotesque in the same game. So you have to really... I think he's better off the left than he is up front through the middle. That's just my take on it. I can't sit here and give you a Joshua-like analysis of why that is.
No, I
it's just based on what I see with my own eyes. I don't know what you think, Derek.
Listen, it's bare bones with Rangers at the moment up top, but they've been really unfortunate with injuries. Alfredo Morelos, no Kemar Roof. Remains to be seen if Fashion Sakala will be up there. To go Joe Aribo would be... I just think it's a major gamble for what is the club's biggest game in 14 years to go play it for the first time ever. I mean, I'm not...
The thing is, Joe Aribo, I mean, I remember Gerrard saying, look, Joe Aribo can play anywhere. He's one of these guys, he can play anywhere. And I can totally see it because he's going
to have to chase shadows and run into channels and run himself into the ground. And Joe Aribo's not that sort of player, is he?
No, but he could be for a one game. And he's 6'2", 6'3". He's built like a tank. He's got really good feet. He holds the ball as well as anyone at Rangers. Him and Glenn Kamara, you just cannot get the ball off them. So, I mean, I could see Joe Aribo being an unbelievable target man. Like, imagine if you turned him into like a sort of Mark Hateley or a Didier Drogba. He's got everything there to be that. But I agree with you, Derek. I don't think now is the time to be saying, right, Joe, see this big guy, Mark Hateley. Here's some VHS tapes. Go and make it happen. I think probably not the time to do that. But look, as CGM55 says, and this is a great point, he was great at left back. He's great at right midfield. He's great in centre midfield.
Yeah, but no offence.
One of these guys, he just play anywhere.
Yeah, no offence to left backs and no offence intended to Calvin Bassey and Bona Barisic. I think it's a tad easier to play at left back as opposed to up front. The hardest part of the game is scoring goals, isn't it? So,
well, listen, mate, I don't know, right? Look at me, I'm a big fat lump, right? Would I rather play left back or up front? I'd rather play up front because I can just, I don't have to run that much. I can just beat up central defenders, elbow them, fight with them, cause problems. Left back, you have to be up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So I don't necessarily agree with that in the modern game, but there you go.
Yeah, well, there's
I know what you're saying, though. I know what you're coming from.
There's a debate for another day. Okay, the folks, well, that'll do us there. Thanks for all the comments and interaction coming in. It really is much appreciated. We'll talk more about the game, of course, in the lead up on Wednesday and Thursday. Myself and Joshua actually heading out there. So it'll be good to get some reaction.
Derek, I've got to say, I'm talking myself into this Aribo thing. The more I think about it, look, Prato, he's got a point here. I can't disagree with a word he's just said.
But I don't know where. Yeah, it's based on zero evidence. There's not.
It's creative. Nah, you're probably right.
Listen. It could work. I'm not saying it can't, but we don't have any background evidence to support this claim.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. And Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is not going to do it. Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, sorry, I've interrupted your flow.
yeah, don't do that again. Okay, that'll do us there, folks. We'll be back again tomorrow morning to look ahead to the big one. As I mentioned, myself and Joshua heading over there. If you're heading over to Leipzig, safe journey to you all making your way out to Germany. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, but until then,